Hello and welcome to a new edition of the CBB Super Show, live on the FTN network. I'm your host, Walter Waddell, aka Dub Deuces 85, the niche sports connoisseur. And after a successful round one, day one of the Crown tournament, we are back for even more action. We have a 6-game slate on tap, 4 Crown tournament games, which is the second half of the first round, and 2 NIT games, which happens to be the NIT Semifinals. Quick maths tells us that's a 6-game slate, the last 6-game slate of the season. Let's go. Yesterday was phenomenal. All-day basketball, which already leads to a huge edge. We had news galore, especially as we rounded into that last one for Georgetown versus Washington State. Both teams down key players. If you played Showdown yesterday, you'd see Micah Peavy, who was ruled out, was like 70% owned. Jaden Epps was like 50% owned. In the main slate, PV about 25%, Epps about 15 to 18%. Big time edge with this stuff. CBI, NIT, and Crown, it is just phenomenal. The NCAA tournament gets more attention, as it should, but if you're a D-Gen like myself and my community, you know that the profitability is sky high for these secondary tournaments, and that was proven correct yesterday as we absolutely nuked the prop market and a lot of green screens in the FTN CBB DFS Discord. Started off early with that Utah forward stat, Keanu Dawes. He is an absolute monster. Can't wait to see where he goes in the portal. We had the 3K Utah forwards that weren't as owned as they should have been. Then we had that late news there, Malik Mack with the legacy game. And Lawan Watts, man, what a point forward showing that he had. So expect more of that today. We're going to go through here, and if you're new to the show, what we do, we go game by game from a DFS perspective. It's the tried and true method. I'm going to break down each of the 6 games, telling you who I like, who I don't, what to look for, news to be aware of. And we're going to break all that down here quickly. We're going to gun for about 45-ish minutes. The slate does lock in about an hour and a half or so, and we're going to be completely and entirely ready. So let's just jump right into it here. What's up, Jason? Good to see you. Thanks for checking in. Yeah, man, it was a fun day yesterday, and I expect more of the same. The only thing that sucks, right, is the contests aren't quite as large, but that's okay. We'll take any edge, profitability, green screens, window trips that we can get. Betting standpoint, there was something with the approval licensing. So books like Caesars, DraftKings, FanDuel, they all had to pull down their Crown betting. I guess when there's a newer tournament or something, they have to get special approval with their licensing. So they did void out a lot of bets there. There is a sports app called Boyd Sports that has accessibility in California, Vegas, and places like that. So if you're in that area, you can download Boyd Sports app. They do have bets still on the Crown up there, and they have prop bets as well. But either way, we'll have you ready. There's props available on Prize Picks and Underdog, which were also very, very profitable yesterday. All right, so let's get right into this. Let's pull up all of our good stuff here. I'm already dialed in and ready. And please make sure, if you can find it in your heart or you are watching on YouTube, to please drop a like there. That helps us a tremendous amount. All those interactions and shares, reposts, everything, it just algorithm-based world that we live in helps a tremendous amount. And if you're not subscribed already to the FTN YouTube channel, please make sure you do so you do not miss out on any of the content coverage that we are offering. And you can see at the bottom of the screen there, scroll down a little bit, the FTN pricing page. You still get a 20% off discount by using March 20. I think this might be the last day for it. But yeah, let's get into this slate here. 6-gamer. Let's do it. All right, first game on the slate here, we have a Crown first round matchup between DePaul and Cincinnati. This is a 9.5 point spread over on Boyd Sports. It's a total of 144.5. My projected starting lineups are as follows. For DePaul, Isaiah Riviera, Layden Blocker, CJ Gunn, NJ Benson, and Troy D'Amico. On the Cincinnati side, Josh Reed, Day Thomas, Jizzle James, Dylan Mitchell, and Aziz Bandiago. Now, I expect pretty much everyone for Cincinnati. Connor Hickman is out, but we already known that. He's been out. So Cincinnati has their full allotment of players. So they should be good to go. On the DePaul side, it's a little bit messier. Connor Enright, of course, is out. He's been out, but he has transferred out. Jacob Meyer has transferred out. And then David Skogman and David Thomas are both dealing with injuries. Well, Skogman injury-related, and Thomas has hit the portal as well. And then we have J.J. Traynor also in the portal, portal, and he is doubtful. As it looks right now, Enright, Meyer, Trainer, Thomas, and Skogman probably not playing. So that makes DePaul pretty thin across the board. You look into the projections there and where we have it. NJ Benson there at 5'7". He does project the best with a 32-minute mark. Over 5x. He's been great with minutes. And yes, Cincinnati's a solid enough defense. And, you know, fantasy upside isn't always that high in their games, but Benson has been a great fantasy point per minute guy, has fantastic rates, and given this opportunity here with no Trainer, no Skogman, he should play all the minutes he can handle, barring any foul trouble. So he is the best DePaul play by a mile. Then you have the Blocker, Riviera, Gunn trio. I always prefer CJ Gunn. He does a little bit more than just score. He gets peripherals. He does a lot. The market, the field probably likes Isaiah Riviera a little bit more. He's had some pretty big upside games. He's going to play every single minute he can handle. All three should play 35-plus minutes. So it's a personal preference there if you want to take a DePaul player at the guard spot. I certainly don't think we need to stack DePaul, but being that they're shorthanded, it makes a lot of sense. As far as D'Amico goes, not really interested. And then I do think Theo, Pierre, Justin, or Chris Riddle, they'll be in line for a lot more minutes. Very cheap. We have some other cheap value on this slate that's mismarked. We don't have to go there if we don't want to. Yes, sir. 1 second, guys. Got a daytime appearance by the sun. Yep, go inside. All right. Apologies for that. We are back on track. As far as the Cincinnati side goes, with a full allotment of players, it makes it a little bit dicey. Utah was the same way yesterday, but we had some great prices, obviously, on Lawson Lovering and Jake Wallin. They were no-brain plays at 3K, but we also knew Keanu Dawes, as a starter with 30-plus minutes, is an absolute stud. So it was a little bit different of an opportunity yesterday. I still like Cincinnati guys. Josh Reed at 5'1" is a play that makes sense. You see he projects pretty well. And all of the Bearcats starters and off the bench potentially with Dan Skillings and Seamus Lukosius all project pretty close to 4x. You can't really go wrong with any of them. I would say Dylan Mitchell is probably my favorite play. I think he's going to actually, wreak havoc against DePaul, get some foul trouble issues on NJ Benson perhaps. He's the one that I think could actually do it really, really well. With that being said, Cincinnati has a tendency with their players to go long stretches of time without putting up fantasy points, so I am nervous about a Cincinnati stack. Definitely will have some exposure here. You have Jizzle James at a reasonable 7.9K price. We have to spend our money somewhere. Then you have those secondary plays like Day Thomas, Seamus Lukosius, Dan Skillings, and Aziz Bandiago. All right. Moving right along here, we're going to go into Oregon State versus UCF, and this one's quite messy as well. UCF is -5, and it's a total of 160, so one of the highest projected totals on the slate here per Boyd Sports. Starting off here with the projected starting lineups and injury designations, right now Oregon State's looking like DeMarco Minor, Josiah Lake, Isaiah Sy, and Matthew Marsh, along with Lutaris Levicius. On the UCF side, we're expecting Darius Johnson, Jordan Ivy Curry, Motiam, Niels Machowski, and Debo Coleman. Now, there's a lot of injuries and transfer portal stuff in this game. Both teams are going to be super depleted, and we're going to want plenty of exposure to this one with the expected high total and the fact that the last players standing are going to get a ton of minutes. Starting off with Oregon State, Michael Rataj, their star, he's in the portal, will not play. Nate Kings, who to me is better than Minor even, he's in the portal not playing. And Parsafala also in the portal not playing, one of their secondary senders. Both of their front court options out of this game. And then DeJon Craig, little used reserve, is also out. On the UCF side, Key Hall hit the portal. It was expected that he would travel with the team and play. Now that sounds like that will not happen. He's busy doing Zoom calls and meetings with teams. He's a highly sought-after transfer after all. J.J. Taylor in the portal, doubtful to play. Mikey Williams, doubtful to play. Raucus Jokocius, also doubtful to play. Coach Dawkins did mention two players by name that are in the portal, but he is going to allow to play. That is Niels Machowski and Tyler Hendricks. So both of those players are expected to play. As far as the projected starting lineup for UCF, Coleman, I've mentioned Niels, even though he's in the portal, I think they'll end up playing him a lot of minutes. And then you have that trio of Johnson, Ivy, Curry, TM. I think you can take 1 to 2 from that trio and feel pretty good about the way your builds shake out here. When you look at Oregon State, you have a ton of guys who are cheap. Latoris is a bit of a wild card. He's going to get so many extra minutes, and he's done well with them. He's going to have a lot more shots at his disposal as well. He's clearly like the 5th or 6th option when they're at their full, allotment of players. But now he steps into like a number 2, number 3 role. So I think he does represent a pretty solid projection, one that's accurate over 5.3x. Isaiah C, same thing, 3.6, solid value piece. Josiah Lake at 5'9" is a little bit priced up, but the role is going to be huge for him as well. And then you have DeMarco Minor there, who's also projecting quite well, and probably the most trusted player on the team at 7'8". Now, it gets a little bit dicey. I have Matthew Marsh as the projected center starter, but it could be Thomas Ndong, could be Maxim Logue. There's a lot of different options here, and you see with 14 to 15 minutes, they're so cheap. They all project pretty well. We're just going to want to go with the starter here. So if it is Marsh, min-price starter at center, definitely there. Thomas Ndong, min-priced starting center, or Maxim Logue, min-priced starting center. So whoever starts from that trio of players, I believe it'll be Marsh, but it could be any of those 3. That's kind of where I want to go. But on the same token, I'm not as confident as I was with Jake Wallin and Lawson Lovering, because I think that they could rotate those centers around. So we'll see how that goes, but we'll still probably lean towards the starter because it's just a good policy to have, right? But as you can see here, lots of high projections for Oregon State. On the UCF side, Jordan Ivy Curry is a core play extraordinaire at 6K. No Keyshawn Hall, a lot of usage, a lot of shots to go around. Jordan Ivy Curry is definitely the play here. And also really like Darius Johnson. He's priced up at 9.4, but again, we got to spend our money somewhere. And if Darius Johnson's going to be a little bit lower owned, I really like the chances of him being a slate breaker, being a high leverage play under 10%. So if you can find the salary to get Darius Johnson, and you should, he's definitely a play I like. I assume we'll see Motiem as a pretty highly owned option at 7.4. The potential is there for him to play 36 minutes. He could break the slate as well. Definitely any of the trio of Ivy Curry, TM, and Darius Johnson, I'm happy with. As far as the value pieces go, you have Niles, who's sitting there at 3.7. Dallin Debo Coleman at 4K. He's projecting really well, 30-plus minutes for him, and then Tyler Hendricks. You'll have those secondary looks because all they really have after that is Benny Williams and Dior Johnson, so they'll see elevated minutes as well. If you're running max entries to the large field GPPs, you'd want to rotate through the various values of UCF, but you're going to come out of this game with probably 3 pieces at minimum. That would highly be my recommendation, and I think we should get the starters. They did a pretty good job yesterday with the way the games were spread out, and the starters were posting really quickly. This is going to be one of those games, though, that we really want that starting lineup for, and we're going to hope that DePaul and Cincinnati don't go to like triple overtime or something to kind of mess that up. So be aware, and we will make our decision based off that. You want to be in the FTN CBB DFS Discord because we're going to be making those decisions, planning that news, going through it game by game. And that's exactly what we did yesterday, and we had a lot of success because of it. All right, moving on to the next game here. We have North Texas versus UC Irvine. This is an NIT semifinal, so there should be no tomfoolery or shenanigans. This is a total of 127.5 defensive battle expected. North Texas is minus 1.5 point favorite. And I think that this is one we're not going to want to get too involved in. All right. Sorry. Kids, my other daughter's texting me. They knew I was doing this, but they had to wait for all their requests and bugs until I got on air. So projected starting line is pretty straightforward for North Texas. Jasper Floyd, Ateen Wright, Grant Newell, Mule Sissoko, and Rondell Walker. On the Irvine side, Justin Owen, Jurian Dixon, Miles Shea, Devin Tillis, and Ben Mushin. No injury news that we have to worry about here, but there's really nobody I want. I kind of put the in my slate breakdown for our community and subscribers. Devin Tillis is kind of the only one that I'd really consider for my main lineup here. See, doesn't project all that well. None of them do. It's just going to be such a low possession slog of a game, defensive battle. It's really difficult to kind of justify getting to any of these. Miles Che at 5'7" is kind of cheap, right? But he's going to be so shot reliant. And then we've had some real good success with Brennan Lorient, but he's priced at almost 7K coming off the bench, and he hasn't been hitting the 30 minutes here in the NIT tournament. So can't really recommend him either. The projections always like a teen right, but he's so shot reliant, and there's a high variance look there because I feel like Irvine could push him into like a 2 for 15 shooting night. So this game's really just a, hey, it's going to be a nice physical battle if you like that kind of thing in a real life basketball game. But when it comes to fantasy purposes, betting purposes, there's not a lot here. And I think the rest of the field / industry will agree. So if you're a leverage player, you've got some options here that are not going to be very highly owned whatsoever, but just be aware it could really backfire on you, especially with some of these other games that have severely underpriced players and are projected to score 40 more points. All right, moving on, we are back into the Crown. Colorado versus Villanova. Villanova's only a 3.5-point favorite. This is one of my top bets of the day. Honestly, I think Villanova is going to just waltz to a victory here. Total is 146.5. The fact of the matter is Julian Hammond, which there was no injury designation on DraftKings. I don't know if they're skittish after marking people out yesterday and then they played. I'm sure there's some folks that you can do it. Yes. I don't know. There were some folks who probably didn't play guys because of those designations. You should always do your own look ahead and social media and whatever. But now they look skittish to mark anybody out. Julian Hammond is not going to play. I haven't marked doubtful, but he's injured. And all reputable beats have been saying that he won't play. So do not play Julian Hammond. Sounds very, very unlikely he goes. And Sebastian Rancic as well. And then Harrison Carrington was a late add to the injury report. So 3 guys out for Colorado most likely. Nobody on the Villanova side. They should have their full roster to go. They're already kind of short-handed anyways, but they've got their starters and their top subs. For Colorado, we're projecting RJ Smith, Javon Ruffin, Trevor Baskin, Bangot Deck, and Andres Jakomovsky as their starters. On the Villanova side, Eric Dixon, Wooga Poplar, Unak Bokai, Jordan Longino, and Jameer Brickus. Colorado, the 2 that stand out the most because of no Hammond, right, would be Javon Ruffin and RJ Smith. Ruffin's only 3-4, RJ Smith's 4-5, and then guys like Trevor Baskin and Elijah Malone also project quite well. Baskin's done really well in a starting spot here, and especially against an opponent like Villanova. That's definitely got some defensive, minded stuff going on with their concepts. But I do like Baskin here as a high-level GBP play under 5K that can absolutely break it. You see we have both him and Ruffin over 5X. You'll have to make a decision. I don't know that we want both Colorado values in this case, but I will take the discount on Ruffin with the assumption that, hey, there's no Hammond. He's going to start. He's probably going to play 30-plus minutes. You see I kind of maybe even under forecasted him at 28 minutes, and he still projects extremely well. So Ruffin is my top play there for the value pieces. And then RJ Smith, Trevor Baskin, Elijah Malone as some GPP alt type looks. Like I said, not quite looking to stack Colorado like we did Utah yesterday. Just think that there's a little bit of a downside there by doing so. As far as Villanova goes, he doesn't project like the highest, Eric Dixon at 8.8, but he's clearly the top play on the slate for me in terms of pay-ups. Now that's, I like Darius Johnson. I mentioned that. He's one of my favorites. There's the Chattanooga guys who we're going to talk about. But Eric Dixon just looks like he's going to put together one of those legacy style 40, 50 fantasy point games at minimum. Colorado should provide very little resistance here. Villanova's, trying to extend their season. There's NIL money on the line. I feel like Villanova is live to win this tournament when you look at the field and the remaining teams from yesterday. So I'm all over Eric Dixon at 8.8. I think the rest of the field will be too, but it's going to be probably hit or miss because of his projection, and I assume most other models out there will have him at a low 4X number, which some people may just pass on. But I'm on the Eric Dixon train here, and I like Wooga Poplar, who's more expensive, right, at 9K, which is pretty wild. Always love Wooga Poplar. He is one of my guys, but I'm not paying more for him over Eric Dixon. But it wouldn't surprise me one bit if Poplar hit a big number. So GBP wise, Poplar is your guy there. And then the others who are going to get tons of minutes, right? Enoch Bokai, Longino, Tyler Perkins off the bench, and Jameer Brickus. Brickus typically projects pretty decently because of his minutes. He's a little pricey for me at 5'5". There's a lot of downside there. He doesn't always get the shots. I would prefer to take Tyler Perkins or Enoch Bokai as a value piece there, but I'm going to just be really, really high on Eric Dixon. Colorado is a fantasy-friendly group, so running multiple Villanova pieces does make sense. Maybe like a Dixon Longino would be a nice pairing. That's kind of where my head would be at. All right, let's move on to the other NIT semifinal, Chattanooga, the Mocs. Our Mocs, hope you got some money down on them at plus 450. They're going to win this thing, guys. They're going to do it. Versus Loyola Chicago. Loyola is a 2.5-point favorite, total of 147.5. Mocs money line all day long. They're winning this NIT, okay? Please believe. No real injury designate or transfer portal designations. We do have Frank Champion questionable for the Mocs. They haven't had him for close to a month now. And then Kamani Hunsaw for Loyola is likely out once again. Starters-wise, Honor Huff, Trey Bonham, Bash Whelan. They have the best names, right? Garrison Kieslar and Colin Mulholland will be your starters for the Mocs. Sheldon Edwards, Des Watson, Jaden Dawson, Miles Rubin, and Jalen Quinn, your likely starters for Loyola. Now, projections-wise, this is going to be one that, none of them are like super slate breaker-esque, because they're priced up. But I mean, Bash Whelan at 6'9", you see he's over 4X. He's been great. I do think he'll be pretty popular. He was last NIT slate. Granted, that was 2 games compared to 6. But I think one of Honor Huff, who's 8'3", and one of Trey Bonham, who's 8'6", are going to end up putting up a big number. Sub 10% ownership. I'm kind of leaning towards Trey Bonham because he offers us a little bit more in terms of secondary stats. But Honor Huff could be the Malik Mack of the day. Like, there's a realistic path for him to score 30-plus real points. You're running multiple lineups, get to those guys. I think both are really strong, regardless of what the projections might say here. This spot against Loyola, the usage, the minutes, this is just going to be a really fun game. Overtime potential, sure, but Trey Bonham and Honor Huff are just absolute dudes. And Bash Whelan, absolutely right there in that group too. As far as the Loyola guys go, we were all over Miles Rubin last slate just because the size advantage they had on Kent State. Not the same level here against Chattanooga, but I do still like him. 7'3" is more of a luxury play than anything. And then when it comes to the guards for Loyola, it's so hard. They rotate, even though they've got guys, in and out of the lineup, and injuries to Hunsuo. They haven't had Justin Moore forever. It's still like one game it'll be Edwards, one game it'll be Watson, the next game it'll be Dawson. So tread a little carefully there. The model likes Sheldon Edwards the best at 6'4" in his projected minutes. I'm fine going there. I actually really like Des Watson to a degree, but I recognize getting to his price at 7'6" probably isn't in the cards. And you can go down and get a value piece like Jalen Quinn at 5'4", who's playing some pretty solid minutes here lately in the NIT too. So probably a little bit more on the alt build side for Loyola, but Rubin, Edwards, Watson, those types are definitely, viable to a degree. And then the last game here, the hammer game on the slate, Tulane versus USC. Expect pure chaos. If you weren't around last night and you had to set it and forget it, like Ron Popeil, look it up, you were in trouble because Jaden Epps was ruled out, Micah Peavy was ruled out, Nate Calamese was out. Like, both teams just down many players. But it ended up being the game of the day, very close. If Richard's Vavers would have hit that fall-away 3, we would have been to overtime. We still might be playing right now. Absolutely amazing game for 2 teams that were missing key players. And for people that say, oh, it's the Crown tournament, they're not going to try. Like, there's teams are out here are trying. Some didn't yesterday, and some didn't have the ability to, like George Washington. But I think this is a game here with USC and Tulane that could really be a really fun one, much like last night's game between Wazoo ended up last night. So it's an 8.5-point spread in favor of the Trojans, total of 158.5. Both teams have some issues here with players. Kevin Patton Jr. has hit the transfer portal, so he'll be out, but the starters for USC are in. Now, I do feel like USC and their coaching staff may have a little bit of a feeling or want to rotate around their players, play some of the lesser used guys to get some experience here. It would not shock me one bit if Eric Musselman and the fellas played their bench pieces a lot of minutes. That means we could see some Jalen Shelley. We could see some Clark Sledger. We could see, perhaps Matt Noling for 30 minutes. Like, these are all options that could happen. Isaiah Iliholm. it's very, very risky here, but we definitely want exposure to this game in some form or fashion. On the Tulane side, it gets dicey. Cam Williams has transferred. He's going to Kentucky. Remember, I told you yesterday, if they're in the portal, they can still play for that program if the coach allows, but if they're transferred to another program, they are not going to play. So he's at Kentucky, no Cam Williams. That much we know. We also have a couple of other transfers here for Tulane that we need to talk about. That have hit the portal. Mari Jordan, Caleb Banks, Michael Ealy, and I believe Spencer Elliott. They're all in the portal. Mari Jordan has been practicing with the team and did travel and is expected to play. So that's a 3K Mari Jordan that DK dropped down with the expectation that he wouldn't play, much like Lawson Lovering and Jack Walleen. Mari Jordan is going to be our Lawson Lovering play of the day. Now, we also have Caleb Banks, who if he was playing would be amazing. And I was very hopeful coming into this that he would. He did not travel with the team, however, and most media beats for Tulane and articles that have come out from other sports media has indicated that Caleb Banks will not play, Spencer Elliott will not play, Michael Ealy will not play, but they mentioned Mari Jordan outright by name as being at practice and traveling with the team. So we will not get Caleb Banks unless he comes in from the top of the arena a la Sting and WCW, but we will have Mari Jordan. And you can see here on the projections for Tulane, we've got some really nice pieces. Mari Jordan, of course, at 3K, almost an 8X projection. It's a no-brainer. He's probably going to have to start. They're down multiple pieces. The starting lineup that I have for Tulane right now, Rowan Brumbaugh, Asher Woods, Percy Daniels, Mari Jordan, and probably Greg Glenn. So that's a pretty solid unit still, even as 8.5-point dogs. They don't have a lot of bench pieces. The main bench piece that they're going to have, Tyler Ringgold, maybe KJ Green, I suppose. And then on the USC side, we would expect Wesley Yates, St. Thomas, Desmond Cloud, Rashawn Agee, and Chibuzo Agbo. This is one I'm going to want multiple pieces of. And we had to worry last night about who's in, who's out. I don't think we have that same level of concern here. You can see aside from Mari Jordan, Percy Daniels projects extremely well because he's going to have to play a ton of minutes. Greg Glenn is almost 7K, but at 37 minutes, he's projecting as a slate breaker. Really like Glenn, especially with Cam Williams and Caleb Banks cleared out of there. Asher Woods is a really nice look at 6'6". And then Tyler Ringgold for you alt builders at 3K, throw him out there. He's going to have to play like 20 minutes. I'm fairly certain of that because they just don't have anyone else. And then Rowan Brumbaugh is the worst projection because he's priced at 9.2, but he's still a pretty solid floor piece. So multiple pieces of Tulane, at least 2 in your main lineup, seems like the right move. On the USC side, the top projections are Chibuzo Agbo, who's really cheap still at 5'8". He's a 3-point shooter, takes a ton of them. And then Rashawn Agee at 6'8". It's expensive for him. You just never know. I'm really worried about Rashawn. I'm thinking he's going to be pretty chalky, honestly, because of his high upside. But like I said, Musselman could very easily say it's time to play Isaiah Eliahome. It's time to play Jalen Shaley, like any of those guys. And Shaley's proven to be good, and so is Eliahome. It just makes a lot of sense for them to potentially unleash some of those bench pieces or go a little bit more balanced. And I think minutes could be lost for guys like St. Thomas, Wesley Yates, and Des Cloud, honestly. So I'm definitely treading lightly with USC because I know they can burn us. But if you're wanting me to kind of, pin down a main team play from USC as a counter to a Tulane stack, it would be Agbo. Just because he's the cheapest, the minutes are there, and I know the shot volume will be there as well. And he's the less likely to lose time as opposed to all those front court options that the Trojans have. All right, so that takes us to the end. 4 crown games in the first round, 2 NIT games in the semifinals. Right now, the core that I'm looking at, Mari Jordan or Percy Daniels. I kind of want the starter between those two, but I'll play either one. If Mari Jordan doesn't start, it makes it a little nerve-wracking just because he practiced with the team. He's there. He should play, but I don't know if he'd get the full minutes. Locking him in 100% if he starts, And then I'd probably be locking in Percy Daniels if he starts. So I'm going to kind of treat it like I did Lovering and Wallin. The only difference is instead of being the first game of the day, it's the last game of the day. So make sure that you drink your coffee and you're ready to go and moving through your lineups, because it's going to be a big edge here one way or another once that starting lineup is delivered. Eric Dixon as my top pay up, and then Jordan Ivy Curry. I expect Ivy Curry to be one of the highest owned players on the slate, but sometimes it's just so easy. So lock him in as well. Best bets, I like Chattanooga, the Mocs. I'm taking them on the money line against Loyola and to win the NIT, as I've mentioned several times. And then Villanova, -3.5. If you have Boyd Sports or any app that is, or a book that's offering you crown lines today, it's they're pretty solid in terms of where Boyd has marked them. But the Villanova -3.5 to me looks like a very high edge point. I think they beat Colorado by 6+, honestly. So those are the best bets there. We'll have some prop stuff in the Discord for Prize Picks and Underdog, but let me pull up Prize Picks here and see what they're throwing out, because let's see, they're not even offering, so Prize Picks isn't even offering Crown today either, huh? Just some NIT props. Dang. Let's check Underdog. Just crazy license business. You'd think that they would have done, like, knowing the crown was announced, they would have had all this ready, especially knowing that people like us are going to be all over it. Okay, so Underdog has crown stuff. CJ Gunn over 20.5 points, rebounds, and assists. I've tried to stay away from PRA where possible, but Gunn's just going to be out there doing a lot, so really like him. DeMarco Minor over 13.5 points. Jordan Ivy Curry over 15.5 points. I do like Brennan Lorient under 10.5 points. He's been great, but the minutes just are bothering me right now in this Irvine game. Like, points are already going to be at a premium. You're going to reduce Lorient's minutes. I just feel like the under 10.5 would be the way to look there. On the Chattanooga game, Trey Bonham over 30.45 fantasy points. I'm all over Trey Bonham once again. Bash Wheeland over 17.5 points plus rebounds. And then Jaden Dawson under 14.5 real points on that one. As for USC Tulane, Greg Glenn, there's giving us first half props there in a fantasy total. I do like the over 26.5 fantasy points for him, but that's not a priority. And then Wesley Yates, under 6.5 rebounds plus assists. I think he'll score a bunch, but I'm also worried about minutes. I don't know how much peripherals he's going to give. And then over 5.5 first half points for Rashawn Agee. Just weird feeling he's going to play in the first and then get rug pulled in the second. So we'll take that first half prop. So that'll get you started on underdogs. Plenty to look at there. It does look like Prize Picks has only posted NIT, not crown. They do have a Trey Bonham prop at 16.5 points. I do like that. And they have Trey Bonham at 30.5 fantasy points on Prize Picks. I do like the over there. I'm a Trey Bonham guy. What can I say? Former Florida Gator. He is that dude. Tim asks, so Jordan is playing for Tulane? Yes, sir. Let's see. What do we find here? Give me 1 second. I'll pull it up from Discord. I have it. But yes, he is there practicing and expected to play. All right, so excuse me. So Tulane insider and beat, and he does a lot with ESPN analytics for their college basketball product. So he's a pretty reputable dude. His name's Isaac Popper. Doesn't have a ton of followers, but he's definitely a guy that I would trust with this. So as of 4 days ago, Ron Hunter says that guard Mari Jordan has taken his name out of the portal and will return next season. Huge news. So he's been waffling because a couple days later, it was like, well, maybe that's not going to be the case. As of this moment, he's traveled with the team. He has taken his name out of the portal, and he is planning to play. Isaac's follow-up here was former top 100 recruit Mari Jordan rejoined Tulane today, was getting shots up before practice, has traveled with the team. They will play USC in the Crown Tournament on Tuesday. So we sent this. This was from a couple of days ago. Jordan should start after coming off the bench in all conference play. Started 11 non-conference games, and that's because of the fact that they're going to be down several players. So he is expecting Mari Jordan to start. He is at practice, and I feel very confident and comfortable with that. I love the fact that he has an out tag. Maybe people will just miss that like they did with the Utah stuff, or they just won't be up late enough to make those swaps in case they're worried about Mari Jordan. But as of this moment, yes, I do feel very confidently that he's going to start and play 30-plus minutes at 3K. All right, so that's what you got us for, man. If you're in the Discord there, we've got even more stuff, but we dig deep to find that. I'm in a bunch of message boards. I have made a lot of relationships with people over the years that are, very in tune with programs. I can't possibly know everything about every program, so it's all about networking for me. But yes, try to get that information as best I can. So I was hoping there'd be a Tulane USC showdown today. It doesn't appear to be the case, because if there was, that you'll get a ton of guys who are out with high ownership, just like in the Georgetown game. But I think that'll wrap up the show here. We still have just over an hour before a lock. Hopefully you guys found this beneficial. There will be the quarterfinal slate tomorrow, which is 4 games, right? Yeah, so 4 games from both sides of the bracket, I think. And then there is the semifinals on Friday. The national championship game takes place the Sunday before the national championship of the NCAA tournament. So we have at least one 4-game slate left, I believe, and then multiple 2-gamers, and then, of course, showdown slates for both national title games and the NIT. So plenty of content coverage and time and effort and all that going into it. Lots of money-making opportunities. Let's roll through another great day. If anything like yesterday, all of you should do quite well. I'm feeling very confident. I love the CBI NIT Crown Tournament stuff because it's just such a large edge, underreported by many. Only thing that sucks, of course, is the contest. But hey, money is money at the end of the day. So appreciate it, guys. On your way out, please make sure you hit that like button. Continuing to support. I don't know if we'll have a show tomorrow, but we'll be having the Final Four show on Thursday evening. So be ready for that. Make sure you have notifications turned on so you do not miss a single solitary thing from yours truly. Thanks, guys. Best of luck. Let's get it. Green screens and window trips.